So what is Selenium? Selenium WebDriver. So we are going to discuss about Selenium WebDriver today. We'll give an introduction to Selenium WebDriver, and then we'll see how to set up the environment, and we'll also see one small Selenium script, first Selenium script. We'll write the first Selenium script and see how it works. So to start with, what is Selenium WebDriver? So Selenium WebDriver, we can define it as like it's one of the components in Selenium. So there are like, so you can say it something like this. Selenium WebDriver is one of the components in Selenium. So Selenium has different components: Selenium IDE, Selenium WebDriver, Selenium Grid, like that. So WebDriver is one of the components in Selenium, and we are gonna discuss about WebDriver. WebDriver is a Java interface. So it is one of the three components of Selenium, and WebDriver is a Java interface. So WebDriver is a Java interface. We have discussed about what interfaces are. So interfaces will have public static final variables. It can have abstract methods. It can have default and static methods in it, right? So, and any class which wants to implement the interface has to provide the definitions of the abstract methods present in the interface, right? So this we have discussed about the interfaces. So WebDriver is an interface, Java interface. So WebDriver is an interface. And remote WebDriver is a class which implements WebDriver interface. So there is a class called a remote WebDriver, which implements the WebDriver interface. So in order to automate, right? So what is automation? We wanted to actually mimic the manual action which is performed on a web browser. So on a web browser, we actually try to fetch or try to interact with the web applications, right? So we use the web browser to interact with the web application, to use the web application, right? So on the web application, so we wanted to test something, right? We wanted to test the web application. So for that, we use the browser. And for that, what is the prerequisite? We actually have to prepare for the list of test cases that can be automated. That will be our first step, right? And once we have the bunch of test cases to be automated, we'll start automating these test cases. So automating the test cases is like we need to write the scripts so that the script when executed, it has to mimic the manual action performed on the web browser to test the web application, right? Now, for that, we have chosen Selenium as the automation tool, right? Now, so Selenium is one of the components in Selenium and is a Java interface, and we are seeing the hierarchy. So, having said that, WebDriver is a interface. So, remote WebDriver is a class which is implementing WebDriver interface, right? And so each browser, so when we say we are automating a web application, we need to talk about the browsers mainly, right? So each browser, all the available browsers, right? So most of the browsers, in significant browsers, are supported by Selenium, right? So, and each browser has its own class and has to provide the implementation for the WebDriver. So what is WebDriver? WebDriver is an interface, right? So we have to provide the implementation for that. So each browser has its own class. For example, Google Chrome has Chrome driver, which has implemented the methods which are there in the WebDriver interface. So the implementation logic for the WebDriver for the Google Chrome browser will be specific to the browser, Google Chrome browser. Same goes with the other browsers as well. So there is something called Firefox driver. So these are all the classes which are implementing the WebDriver interface. Right. So these are all the actually these are these extends the remote WebDriver class. Right. So indirectly implementing the WebDriver interface as remote WebDriver is implementing the WebDriver interface. Right. So indirectly these browser drivers or these browsers classes are implementing the WebDriver interface. So actually, these are extending the remote WebDriver class, right? So Firefox driver and Edge driver. So each browser has its own class defined, and each browser in its class has to implement the methods defined in WebDriver interface. So this is how it works, right? So this is the hierarchy when we say the WebDriver as a Java interface. So WebDriver is defined as a Java interface and has provided some methods within it. So Selenium has actually, so Selenium developers have actually created an interface called WebDriver. So in that, they actually created some methods. So, and those methods has to be implemented for any browser so that we can use that class which actually implemented the WebDriver interface, and we can perform the actions on the web browser. We can automate the actions on the browser using these browser classes, right? Specific browser classes. And coming to next point, WebDriver is an API. So what is API? API stands for Application Programming Interface. API stands for Application Programming Interface. So what does that mean? Let me show you. So for any web application, so how do we need to understand web application is? So say for example, this is your client. There will be an application server and there will be a database as well. Let's call this as database. So now this is my application layer. Sorry, this is browser or client, right? This is also called as front end. This we can call it as client or browser, and this is called as front end. So this is where we actually start interacting with the any application, right? So if you wanted to open any website or any web application, we need one browser, right? So, and we provide the particular URL in the address bar so that it actually navigates us to the particular web page on the of the web application, right? So what happens in the backend is, so this, say for example, assume this is your front end, right? So this is your web application, right? So if this is your web application, then it actually sends a request to your server. So when it sends a request to the server, right? So this is what we call it as app layer, application layer, or we can call it as, you know, server. So this is called as application layer or server, right? So client actually communicates with the server. So again, what happens is this server, in order to fetch the data, it actually interacts with the backend database. So we call this as database. Data will be stored in some database, right? So there are multiple databases. So there are SQL, NoSQL databases, right? So multiple databases, right? So according to the requirement for the web application, one database will be configured for that web application. And the applications, so all the business logic will be written here. So the business logic will be written here at the server level, server layer, right? And from the front end, we just provide, we actually interact with the application with some mouse clicks or provide the input using the keyboard, right? So at the application layer will be the actual business logic written by the developer. So this is the place where the actually developers write the business logic. Business logic in the sense, so upon receiving an input from the browser or from the user, so this is called as front end, right? So server is called as back end. So you don't see this, right? So when you try to interact, like when you actually browsing from a browser, so you don't see what happens in the back end, right? So in the backgrounds, what's happening, we don't actually see it, right? So that's what we call it as a backend. So, but this is what it happens. So when a request is sent from the front end, so it is received by the server layer or the application layer. So where the business logic will be written by the developers, right? So developers who have developed this web application, so at the backend, they read this request and parse or understand this request and forward the request to the data, not forward, but whatever the business logic has been written here. So that logic will be processed, and if required to fetch the data, it sends a request to the database. So upon sending the request to the database, so database responds with the query, right? So a query will be sent to the database for fetching the data. So depending on the request sent by the sent by the client, right? So then database responds with the query result, right? So then that will be, so again, that will be processed. That will be not sent as is to the user. So business logic is like core, right? So it acts as a core, and here we have something called APIs, right? So this is the place where we call it as APIs, and using these APIs, so they interact like they actually send back the response to the front end, that is browser user, right? So first what happens, so a request will be sent by the client to the a request has been sent, will be sent by from the browser by the client, right? So it will be received by the application layer or the server, backend server, where the business logic will be process. So all this is happening using the APIs. So APIs is application programming interface. So we all learned this, right? We just now defined API acronym, right? Application programming interface. There will be multiple APIs per each request, right? So per each request, assume there is one API, right? So this API, all these APIs are written. So the logic for the APIs will be written at this application layer by the developers, and that will be exposed to the client. So when client actually uh, sends a request, so those APIs will be used. Those APIs will be called, and using those APIs, the request will be received, and the business logic will be processed at this application layer. And if required, so if there is any data required, so then a request will be sent. So request will be sent in the form of SQL query to the database, because database only can understand the SQL language, right? So it will actually, a SQL request will be sent to the database, and the database just responds with that query or the SQL request, right? So then once you know database sends the response to the query. So again, this query result will be not sent directly to the front end or the client, right? Server receives that query. So again, what server does, that again some business logic will be processed, like taking that query result, looking at the query result, it will actually modify accordingly, and it will actually present that to the front end. It will actually send it back to the front end, requested front end or the client. So this is the flow. So for this to happen, there will be multiple APIs written by the developers at the server level or the application app level, right? So these APIs will have the actual business. So these APIs will serve as the interface, right? From client to the server. So once the request is received by the server, a business logic will be processed, and if required, a request will be sent to the database in the form of query, and query result will be sent back to the application layer, and this will be again processed. The result will be processed by the server or the application layer, and then sent back to the client. So that is what we see it on the front end or the browser. So this is all what it happens when we actually interact with any web application, right, from the front end. So this we don't actually see it. All this is invisible for us. So all this part is invisible for us when we are interacting with web application. So examples are like you might interact with a bank. Say for example, you wanted to have some online transactions, right? You use net banking for that. So all this is what it happens. So all that we only see is on the client or browser or the front end, this part, right? So, but this is all what it happens. So there will be multiple APIs, several APIs at the server level. So client actually, or the client interacts with these APIs, right? So interacts with the server using these APIs. So just to give an example, right? So how we can understand this is, say for example, you have something like you go to a restaurant, right? So you go to a restaurant and you might be actually, once you go to the restaurant, right? So you'll be seated, right, first, and then there will be a kitchen at the restaurant. There will be a kitchen, right? So there will be waiters, right? So someone called waiters who actually provides us a menu to actually take the order, right? So this you can call it as, we as a customer to the restaurant can be called as client. So how do we interact? We interact with the waiter. So what does waiter does? Waiter takes the order and places at the to the kitchen, right? So then what does chef does? Chef actually prepares the food. Food will be prepared by the chef and will be, and this will be taken by the waiter, right? So waiter receives this food once it is prepared. And waiter what it does? So waiter, they actually serve this food to the client. Client in the sense, right? Customer in this case. Customer who has actually visited that restaurant, right? So this is just an example, right? So here we can call waiter as an API, because waiter is, acting as a medium between the actual food where it is prepared in the kitchen and to actually serve it to the end customer, right? So this we can actually compare it or not compare it. This is just for understanding, right? So here we can call waiter as an API, and the actual place where food is prepared is, we can compare it with like database, and the customer we can compare it with client, right? So this is just for an example. So this is how it works, right? The waiter acts as a medium between the customer and the actual kitchen, right, in the restaurant. So in the same way, APIs acts as a interface. So is an acts as an interface between the client and the database. So database, so this need not be always database. This can be even files, any storage, right? So this can be any storage, right? So what we need to understand here is there will be some APIs. So client actually interacts with APIs at the written at the application layer, right? So this front end is also, sometimes this front end is also called as presentation layer. So this is also called as presentation layer, because the data will be presented at the front end itself, right? So whatever might be the backend logic, but end of the day, we get the data to be visible on our browser, right? So the data will be presented on the browser. So this is called as presentation layer, right? So this is all about the what basic understanding of API. What is an API, right? So all the interaction with the server by the client will be done using the APIs. Is that clear? You understood? All right. So now with this understanding, we can understand web interface now. Now Say for example, this is your WebDriver. No, this is your ID. ID can be like, Eclipse. It can be Eclipse, IntelliJ, IntelliJ IDEA. It can be NetBeans and so on, right? And now this is our ID where we write the Java programs, right? So we write multiple lines of code here and so on. So we write a multiple lines of code in Java, right? Using an IDE like Eclipse, IntelliJ, like that. We have chosen Eclipse as the IDE, but you can even choose any other IDEs as well. IDE is Integrated Development Environment. We have seen this, right? When we are discussing about Eclipse. So like that, you have other IDEs. So you can use any IDE to write the code. And we say, for example, we are writing some Java code here, right? So now we wanted to automate, right? So what we wanted to automate, we wanted to automate some actions done on the web browser, right? So in order to do that, what is required? So this is ID, right? So Java program. We are gonna write the Java program there. And say for example, this is your browser. This is our browser. Chrome, Firefox, right? Edge, and so on. Now we wanted to perform some actions on this browser. So how do we write the code for it? So we can write a Java code for, write a logic. We have written multiple logics and we have learned multiple concepts when we are discussing about Java, right? But how do we actually talk or communicate with the browser? So we have to have some medium for that, right? So the medium is web interface, WebDriver, right? So this WebDriver is an interface. So which actually communicates with the browser. So WebDriver is an interface, right? And there are multiple classes which actually we have seen. So Chrome driver, Edge driver, like that. All these classes are implementing this WebDriver interface. Meaning the methods defined in this interface will be implemented in those classes. So we are gonna use those classes. So each class, what it contains again. So the class contains some methods, right? So WebDriver will have some abstract methods, its own default static methods. All these methods will be, will be inherited, right? Or will be implemented by the corresponding browser class, right? So say for example, take Chrome driver. Chrome driver is a class which implements the methods by the WebDriver, and which specific to the specific implementation will be written in the Chrome driver class methods to interact with the Google Chrome browser. That will be specific to Google Chrome browser, right? So these methods might be the same in the WebDriver, but each class has its own implementation. So that's the beauty of interface, right? So you have the define, you have methods in interface WebDriver defined, but all the classes which are implementing this interface WebDriver has to provide its own implementation, right? So why we are saying the specific implementation is all those browsers might look the same for us at the high level, but the implementation, the internal logic written for the browsers to work might be different. So each implementation will be different for each browser, right? So the implementation will be different for each browser. So the methods which are implemented by the classes for this WebDriver interface will be providing that specific implementation. Now, so what we need to concentrate. So we are writing some Java code here using the WebDriver methods. So what we are gonna do is we will actually use these methods defined in the WebDriver, right? So this WebDriver will have some methods, right? So it will have some methods. So these methods we are gonna use and interact with. From these methods we can use, right? So these are the methods within the interface, and the classes which are implementing this WebDriver will be providing the implementation for these methods. So we write the Java code using the IDE to. So while writing, what we do, we just actually use these methods. We just call these methods. So these methods will have an implementation or the logic to interact with the browser. So here is the place where the actual logic will be written, how to interact with the browser, how to communicate with the browser, right? So that logic will be written, and each browser will have its own class for that implementation, right? So if you observe here, this is where, like, here if you observe our Java, or the place where we are writing the code in the IDE, we can call this as a client, right? And WebDriver acts as an interface here. You can clearly say WebDriver acts as an API, right? Application programming interface, because so it is acting as a medium between your ID and the actual actions to be performed on the browser, right? So it is acting as a medium between the IDE or the editor where your Java code is written and the browser. So it is acting as a medium, right? So we can call this as an API, right? WebDriver as an interface. So what it is doing, it is actually acting as a medium. You can say interface itself. It is acting as an interface between a client where it is editor here, a Java editor or an IDE, and the browser, right? As we can't write, we don't need to write a special code in Java to communicate with the browser. It has been already provided by the WebDriver, and the methods has been exposed. So we use those methods and write the Java code in IDE or any editor, right? We use that editor and write the Java code and use these methods. So, and with this method, so when we actually call these methods, the actual implementation logic will be written here, how to communicate with the specific browser, right? So this is what we call it as an, this is the reason why we call WebDriver as an API. So why API? Application Programming Interface. So this is the place where, the actual business logic will be there, and we said like this is acts as an application, right? So application. And so this is an application. So this is an application, and then programming. So there are multiple programs written here, right? So programs, in the sense, program is consists of a classes, right? Classes again will have the method. So the multiple programs will be written, right? So this is called as an programming, and it is acting as an interface between editor and a browser. So interface. So that's the reason it got the name application programming interface. So that's how it got a name as API. And to communicate, right? So to communicate, WebDriver uses, so earlier it used to use in Selenium 3, it used to use JSON protocol. We use, so there are some protocols to communicate with the browser, right? So Selenium actually uses something called, Selenium uses JSON protocol to communicate with the browser earlier in 3.x version. Now in version 4, Selenium uses something called W3C protocol. So you have to remember this. So JSON protocol, earlier Selenium used to use JSON protocol to communicate with the browsers, and now W3C protocol from Selenium 4 version, right? So this is all very important in the interview perspective. So in order to test your basic knowledge on what WebDriver is, right? When you say that you know Selenium, so this will be asked in the interview. So what is a WebDriver? So why we call WebDriver as an interface? So this type of questions might be asked in the interviews, right? So you have to explain it like this by putting a diagram. So you have to explain it, your understanding of what WebDriver is and why WebDriver, we call it as an interface, right? Is that clear? You need to have the understanding of what API is first. So we understood that, right? And with an example also, and we are considering here WebDriver as an API, right? Is an interface. And why we are calling it as an interface is it is actually acting as an interface between the our Java editor IDE and the browser. All right. So with this understanding, what we can do is like we can jump on to setup, environment setup. So WebDriver is an interface, and remote WebDriver is a class which is implementing WebDriver interface, and all these drivers are each driver is one class specific to a browser and has its own implementation for that specific browser. And all these classes are extending the remote WebDriver class. So remote WebDriver class has already implemented the WebDriver interface. No. So with this understanding, at least we need this understanding, basic understanding, right? So no, with this understanding, we'll set up the environment. So environment setup. How do we set up the environment to actually start writing the Selenium scripts? I'll provide you step by step. So first, there are two approaches actually, right? So one is, let me show you the first approach, first step. So first method, first approach, right? So what we do in the first approach is we download the Selenium WebDriver jar files. It's a zip for it comes in a zip format. So we download them, and then once downloaded, we extract them, and then we attach them to the Java project. So this is one approach. So let's actually try this approach, and then we will see this easiest, better one and easier one, the second approach later, right? So how we used to do, like how we can do this, like, right? Downloading Selenium web jar files and attach them to the Java project, right? So for that, what we need to do? First, we need to navigate to the Selenium official website, selenium.dev. So here you see this is Selenium official document, official website, right? And you can see once you are on the home page, you can see Selenium WebDriver, IDE, grid. These are the components of Selenium, right? And just click on downloads. And when you click on downloads, you can see all the languages supported by the Selenium, C Sharp, Ruby, Java, Python, JavaScript, right? So you can see so as we are writing code in Java to interact, so remote WebDriver is a super class of all the classes, right? So remote WebDriver is a super class of all these classes. So it just implements this WebDriver. Is another class. It's like any other class. So it's like a super class for any other classes. So any class which is actually implementing, writing the implementation for its specific browser. So it will be extending this class, and this class has anyway implemented this WebDriver. This is a common class or base class for all the browser classes. Right? So now, how do we set up the environment is first we download the Selenium WebDriver jar files and attach them to the Java project. So you go to the Selenium official website, click on the downloads, and you can see Java here, right? So there are multiple languages supported by Selenium, but we have chosen Java, right? So we need to download jar files for Java now. So you can see a stable version here. So you see something called stable and the version here. 4 is the major version, 22 is the minor version, right? And you can see here. So when it was released even. So you just need to click on this. This is hyperlink. Just observe. You just need to click on this. That's it. So it gets downloaded. A zip file gets downloaded. It will ask you where to download this. So what you can do is you can just download it at whatever place you want, right? So I have already downloaded this zip file. In your case, you will just say save. So it will get downloaded. The zip file gets downloaded, right? So once it is downloaded, so what you need to do, you need to extract this zip file. So how do you extract this zip file? Right click on it and just do extract. So it will take some few seconds to extract that. So and we'll get a folder, and within that folder we'll see the many jar files, right? So what are jar files? A jar file is a Java archive. So what do we usually do to write a Java program? We do create a class, right? So we create a class and we write a program, right? So like that, there could be, and within a class, we'll have variables and methods, right? Like that, we will can have multiple classes, right? So all these classes can be part of one package. Like this, we can have several packages within a project, right? So all these packages and there all these packages, if we wanted to have it as to use it or to share it, how we share it is, so we actually make them into a jar file, that is Java archive. Jar represents for Java archive, right? So all this we actually package into jar files. Like that, there are multiple jar files for the Selenium WebDriver. That is what we downloaded now as a zip file and extracted it. And you can see the jar files here, right? So all these jar files are required for the Selenium WebDriver. All this comes as one package. So each jar file internally will have multiple packages, and each package will have its classes, and classes will have methods, right? So all these are given as jar files, right? So all these jar files are required for the Selenium WebDriver. All right. So this will be the, so this we have done, right? So let's go. Let's split this also into steps. So download it, download WebDriver. Yeah, right. So this, when downloaded, it was in zip format. So what did we do? We extracted. Now we'll create a Java project. So it's always better we download the stable version, latest stable version, right? So when we go to the official Selenium website, we can see the stable version. Stable version is the actually, it's been tested and it's working properly, right? So it's stable. So always we need to choose the latest Selenium version. This actually changes. This changes with time, right? So in few days or in few months, this version will be changed. Maybe it will be changed to 4.23.0, right? So always it's a good practice to take the stable version, right? Download the zip file, extract it, right? Now we'll create a new project. We'll create new Java project. And once we create a Java project, we do have the jar files, right? So we'll attach these jars to the Java project. Simple, 3 steps, right? So we already downloaded the jar files and also we extracted them, right? No, there won't be any conflict. If you are using the latest Java version, right? So it will mostly be compatible with the latest stable version of Selenium WebDriver, right? As we are anyway using Java 21 here, so there won't be any conflict. No. So the first step has been done. In the first approach, so we are seeing the environment setup for the first approach. How to download, we are downloading the Selenium jar. We wanted to see this approach, right? Within this approach, the first approach, what did we do? We have some sub steps, like we need to download WebDriver jars and extract it. This step is already done, right? So you can see when after extraction, this is what I see, all the jar files, right? And then we wanted to create a new Java project. So how do you create a new Java project? You can actually create, so when you launch it, right, when you launch your browser when ID Eclipse, so it will ask you for the workspace. You can create a new workspace and you can actually point that workspace, right? So you can actually switch to a workspace and provide the particular workspace here. Browse it and say, for example, you have something called WebDriver, right? So say, for example, I have created WebDriver. I can select WebDriver and just do select folder here, so that your workspace changes and your project will be present in that workspace. Or what you can do is you can just use the same workspace as well. So whatever we are using till now. the Java project. So Java programs, we learned core Java and by creating a Java project, right? So you can use the same workspace even and create a new project. So it's up to us. If you wanted to have a separate workspace for Selenium WebDriver, you can keep it. So I'm just saying like how to create the workspace, right? So you just need to create a folder wherever you wanted your workspace, and then go to open your Java and IDE, Eclipse IDE, and then you just see other and select your workspace here. Or when you actually click on your Eclipse, right? So it will actually show you pop-up, will give you this pop-up to select the workspace. Even here, you'll just say browse, and wherever you have created your workspace folder, you'll just select that folder and then say select folder, right? So that your workspace gets changed, right? So I am actually using the same workspace where we created the Java project, right? Then once we are done with the workspace, selection of workspace, so we need to create a Java project. You see here, once I click on file, new Java project, right? So Java project, just select Java project here. Or you can do it from here as well. From the icon bar, you see this arrow, click on it. You see Java project, right? Either way works. So just click on Java project and provide a name to your Java project. I'll just say Selenium WebDriver. And just keep everything default for now and then just say finish. So we have created a project, right? We have created a new Java project. Very simple step, right? So we downloaded the jar files and extracted it, created a new Java project as well. Now, how do you attach jars to the Java project? So now see. So if you observe, it already has some. Let me delete this. I think I already added it. So let me remove it first. So once you create the project, so this is how you see it, right? So you'll get it something like this, and then you just need to create. You just need to right click on your project, go to properties, and here you'll see on the left you'll see resource builder storage Java build path, right? So select Java build path, and within the Java build path you need to choose libraries. So libraries tab. Click on libraries tab and you see something called class path. Click on class path, right? And once you click on class path, all these buttons get enabled on the right. So you have to choose add external jars, right? And then wherever you have extracted your jar files, right? So navigate to that folder and then so you'll see all the jar files, right? Just select one file or do Control A. So just do Control A, meaning you're gonna select all the files, right? It will be Command A for Mac, right? So select all the files and just do open. Click on open. That's it. And then click on apply and close. Now you see you get something called reference libraries and you can see all the jar files added to your project. So this is what we mean by adding the jar files to the project or attaching the jars to the Java project. So you can see all the jar files, right, which are coming from this, wherever we have extracted the jar files. So from that folder, all the jar files are coming and all those got attached to our Java project. So this will be the setup for the first approach before you write the Selenium script. Before you start writing the Selenium scripts, this will be the first approach you need to follow. So three simple steps, right? So you downloaded the WebDriver jar files. zip and extracted it, right? And then we created the new Java project and we attached the jars to the Java project. So the first approach, right? But say for example, so you asked that question, right? So how do I know the version? And also if I wanted to change my Selenium WebDriver to the new version, then what should we do? We have to remove all these libraries from the build path. So we have to remove all these reference libraries from the build path and then download the new jar files, new zip file from the Selenium official documentation, extract it again, and then add the new jar files to the Java project. So this we have to do every time we get a stable new latest version of Selenium, right? So that's a tedious job, definitely, right? So doing that every time when we wanted to upgrade to a latest version of Selenium, so we have to follow the entire process, right? So at least we don't create the new Java project, but at least we need to download the jar files and then we need to attach them to the Java project. So this is a manual task, right? Whenever we wanted to upgrade to the latest Selenium version, this will be a manual task and it is a tedious job, right? So there's a second approach. We don't need to do all this, right? So there is a simple approach. Now observe. How do we do that? By creating Maven project. So there is something called Maven project, which we create same like how we created the Java project, but there are multiple benefits by creating the when we create the Maven project. We'll see that now. So what are the benefits we get when we create the Maven project, right? So I'll show you now. First, within this, what we need to do is, first we need to create a Maven project. How do we create a Maven project in Eclipse? Is same like how we created the Java project. Go to your Eclipse, right? So I'm just deleting this. We are not going with this approach, right? So I'm just deleting it. So go to File, click on File, New. So you see a Maven project, right? So you see something called Maven project. Maven is a build tool, and we'll see the benefits. I'll show you. Um, I'll show you the benefits now. So Maven project, right? So we wanted to create a Maven project. So just click on Maven project. Sometimes you might not be getting this option here, right? You will see only project and others. So in that case, you have to select other. Just click on other and you'll see something like this, right? So you can just search in the wizard, something like type in Maven and you can see Maven project here. Or if you can find Maven folder here, right? So just expand that Maven folder and you'll see Maven project here. Either one works, right? So just select Maven project and click on next, right? So, or if you find the Maven project option here itself in new, you can just choose that Maven project. So I'm showing you all the ways how to actually select or select the Maven project from the file menu, right? All right. So from whatever option you choose to create a new Maven project, a window gets opened like this, right? So the first step you'll choose is just select this. No. Create a simple create a simple project. Skip archetype selection. Just select this, right? We don't need to select architecture type and all, right? So you just select this. We are going to create a simple Maven project. And you can choose the workspace location as well. Just say next. And we need to provide group ID and artifact ID, right? So I'm going to provide it as Selenium WebDriver. Both group ID and artifact ID, you can provide something, some ID, right? So I'm providing Selenium WebDriver. That's it. Once you provide this values, just click on finish. Okay. So I think I already have a WebDriver. So okay, what I can do is I'll just give a separate different name. Or okay, 1 second. Let me actually have that. I think I created that. Okay, we just now created, right? So it's actually showing that, right? So it is saying we can't create it. All right. Anyway, we can create with a different name. No issues. So file, new, Maven project. So I'll just say Selenium project, something like that. Some name, right? So some unique name, which that was existing in my workspace. So it was throwing error, right? So I just renamed it. I just provided a different name. Now see, just say finish. So a Maven project gets created here, right? So a project gets created here and you can see this. So once you expand this project, so this is a Maven project. So you'll have a hierarchy or structure a bit different. It don't look like a normal Java project, right? So now let's go through this. So you see SRC main Java, SRC main resources, test Java, SRC resources, right? So what does this mean? So usually whenever a developer, Java developers create the Maven project, so they write the Java code in the source main Java. And whatever are the some third-party libraries, some some files, property files, some utilities, all those will be put in the source main resources. And source test Java mainly will be written for writing the unit test cases, right? So the developers write the unit test cases to test the application, right? So that will go into source test Java. And source test resources will be the actual utilities, again, like third-party libraries, any property files, Excel sheets, all those can be put in the source test resources, which are related to testing, right? So in our case, we are gonna not develop any web application. We are just gonna write the test script, right? So we can just delete this two packages. We don't need it, or else you can even keep it. So no worries, right? So no issues even if you keep that, right? But we are gonna write it in the test Java. We'll select this package and we'll create the classes within this package. And yeah, you can see JRE, the default one which is attached to the project. You can change it even, and you can see SRC. So source and target, right? So, and you can see the pom.xml as well. So this is very important. Observe this pom.xml. So once you click on this pom.xml, so just open the pom.xml file. So you see something like this, the project, and you see the group ID which we gave, right, while creating the Maven project, artifact ID. There are model version and all the others, right? You can just keep everything else default, right? No. So what do we need to do? We'll actually need to create a dependency tag here, dependencies. So what are we dependent on? We are dependent on, for this project, we are dependent on Selenium WebDriver jars. So we need to get that dependency. So how do we get that dependency? So Maven is all about build tool and we will provide the dependency here for our project. So dependency in the sense, whatever we did earlier, like we downloaded the WebDriver jar files. So using a zip file, right? And then we extracted it. Now we don't need to do that. We just need to get the dependency of it. So for that, there will be some repositories. Say for example, Maven has MVN repository. So repository is some location where all the where most of the libraries are available. Libraries in sense jar files are available, right? So are available at some particular location. So what we are gonna do is we'll navigate to that location. We'll get that that dependency and put it in your pom.xml so that it will automatically download the jar files from that MBN repository location. So I'll show you that how to do that. So we need to navigate to MBN repository. Just type in MBN repository in Google and and you'll see that website, right? So you'll see that URL mbnrepository.com. So select that. Once you select that, you have to search for the jar files which we wanted, right? Just type in Selenium Java. Hit enter. Now you see Selenium Java as the first result, right? You can see that. Just click on Selenium Java. This first one. Now you see different versions of Selenium jars, right? So Selenium WebDriver, you will see different versions. See, even before 4 also, all Selenium 3 versions are also available. Even Selenium 2 versions are also available, right? So whatever will be the latest version, that will be on the top, right? You can even see the date on which it was released, right? So it's a repository. All the jar files, all the versions of jar files are put here at the central location in Maven repository, right? So what we need to do? So we just need to select the version which we want. See, I'm choosing the latest version. Click on 4.22.0, right? So just click on that. And you know, you'll get something like this, right? You can read all this. This is the information of our Selenium Java 4.2.20 version, right? Now you can see the build tools, right? Maven, Gradle, and so on, right? So Maven is what we have created now. And you see something in this text area, text box, right? Just click on this. That's it. You don't even need to do copy and all, right? So once you click on this box, it is copied to clipboard, right? So it is copied to your clipboard now. So this dependency is all what we require. So just get it here, add it here in the dependencies. So what did we do here? We created a Maven project and then we opened the pom.xml. Pom.xml is the XML where we actually provide the dependencies for our project, right? So for our project, what all we required was Selenium jars, right? So for that, we went to MBN repository, right? And tried to find the Selenium Java files, jar files. And we have chosen the stable version or the latest stable version, and got this dependency added to our pom.xml. That's it. So with this statement, right? So you can see group ID, it is arg.selenium.hq.selenium. So it will navigate to this and then, so these are the group ID and artifact ID. It will know what has to be fetched, right? It will know Selenium Java files, all Java files related to Selenium Java has to be fetched. And which version? So that version has been specified here. So with this, with this specified in the pom.xml, Maven project or Maven knows what jar files has to be downloaded and attached to your project. So if you observe, once we did this, we got something called new thing called Maven dependencies here. This was not there earlier, if you observe, right? So just expand it and see. See, all the jar files which we downloaded earlier in the first approach and added manually to the Java project has been added to the project now. But we did not do this, right? So we just created the Maven project and added the dependency in the pom.xml. With this dependency, all the jar files are brought in, downloaded to your disk, and then it has been added to your project automatically. So this is the beauty of creating the Maven project, right? And just specifying the dependency in the pom.xml, all the jar files which are all related to the project will be, added to your project automatically. So what's the benefit of this? So whenever you wanted to share my project to someone else, right? To some my peer developer, right? So I don't need to, download this project and give him the, when I can share the project, but in order to get the dependencies, right? So I have to share these dependencies as well if it was manual. But in my case, right, when we create a Maven project, we don't need to share all the third-party libraries and dependencies like that. Even there might be a chance that we might be missing some dependencies, right? So in that case, what we can do, I can just share my pom.xml. So whatever dependencies are there, not only this dependency, right? So if I'm developing a project which requires some other dependencies, I can go on add the dependencies like this, right? So all my dependencies required for the project will be specified in my pom.xml. So what I can do in that case, I'll just share my pom.xml to the my PA developer. Then what happens? That will be they create a project, they get the code from the source control, and you just need to get the pom.xml, right? So you just need to copy that pom.xml. That's it. So when you copy to your project, all the dependencies will be downloaded to your disk, and then it will be added to your project automatically. So that's a huge benefit with the Maven project. So definitely it will be a better approach than the first approach, right? So what did we do here? how did we avoid the above steps is we just created a Maven project. Anyway, we need to create a Java project, right? So instead of that, we created a Maven project. And then what did we do? We added the WebDriver dependency. We added WebDriver dependency to form.xml. And now, what's the benefit of this? Tomorrow, like, say, for example, the version has been changed, right? We got the latest version, say, for example, 23. So, all that what you need to do here is you just come to your pom.xml and you'll just say 23.0. Say, for example, 23.0 exists, right? When it is released, you'll just do 23.0. That's all. So, with that, what happens? All the latest jars of which are present in the 4.23.0 version will be downloaded and will be automatically updated onto your disk and will be automatically added to your project as well. Very simple, right? So just changing the version, it here in the pom.xml brings you the latest jar files, right? Latest Selenium WebDriver jar files. Added WebDriver dependency to pom.xml, right? So you can even update the with this, you can update the version whenever you want it. So with just updating the version in the pom.xml will get you the latest jar file. Very simple, right? So now I'll just provide you the Maven this location as well. So if you do not find this, so in the search, so you can just navigate to this URL so that you will be landed onto your page, onto this page. Then you will just copy this dependency to your pom.xml. Anyway, I'm gonna share you this pom.xml as well. You can just copy it so that these jar files, dependency jar files will be added to your downloaded and added to your project automatically. So all right. So this is the second approach. Most of the time or in our project, right? So whenever we are creating the new projects also, so we will be following this approach. And even in the industries also, they will follow this approach. They won't do this manual job, which is a tedious one, right? So always we need to create the Maven project. We create the Maven project, right? So it's very simple. We just need to add the dependency to the pom.xml and it will do the rest of the job, right? The stable, yeah, this is all what it is, right? And you can just remove this version so that you'll be landed onto choose the versions even. So you'll be landed onto this page and you can choose the version you want, right? So I have given the URL here for the MA repository. Now we created the dependencies, right? So what we need, we wanted to start creating the project classes now. Package is already there. Now we'll create our first Selenium script. So how to do that? It's like a normal class, like right, like how we do create a class, right? Once we have package, right click on the package, say new class. So I'll just say first Selenium script. Let's write our first Selenium script now. We are done with the environment setup. We are now starting to write the Selenium script. All this is one-time setup, right? Now I wanted to automate a small test case. So what we'll do is we'll just navigate, we'll open the Google Chrome browser. We'll navigate to google.com, right? We'll just open the Google Chrome browser and we navigate to the google.com URL, right? And then you see the title here on the tab, which is Google, right? So we'll just verify this title if it is Google or not, right? Very simple test case. So let's do this. Let me put the steps here. The test case which we are gonna automate. So first step will be launching the browser, right? So let's launch Chrome browser and then we'll open google.com. That will be our second step. And we will validate the page title. And once we validate, we'll close the browser. So how do we do this? How do we automate this? We are going to write an automation script for this. We are not going to do this manually, right? So all these steps we want to do now. So first, let's take the first step, launching the browser. So how do we launch the browser? So for that, we understood like Chrome driver is a class which has the implementation of specific to the Google Chrome browser, right? So we create an object. So Chrome driver for the Chrome driver class, right? Once you create an object of the Chrome driver, so the reference of it, we are storing it in the variable, reference variable, right? So we are getting an error here. See, read the error. Chrome driver cannot be resolved to a type. So it is asking to import this Chrome driver class from this package. You have to be careful with the package org.openkeyway.selenium.pro. This from this package, we need to import the Chrome driver class. Just click on this. It will add the import statement to your project. That's it. The error has gone, right? And we already, and you know what? We already automated the, launching the browser. With this single line of code, we can launch the browser. Now, let me execute it. See, run as Java application. Now see, it will be a bit slow, but you can see. So I didn't open this. So it got opened. And you can even read this. There is a note, right? Chrome is being controlled by automated test software. So Chrome identified that we are running it using the automation script, right? So let me close it for now. So what did we do? We have written the single line of code to launch the browser. This single line of code will launch the browser, right? So Chrome driver is a class which has the implementation for the Google Chrome browser. So we just created an object for the Chrome driver, right? Then that's it. It actually launched the browser. Now, so can I do something like this? So as WebDriver is an interface and Chrome driver is implementing the WebDriver interface, right? So can we do something like this? WebDriver driver equal to, let me comment this out. We can do it, right? So what is this called? This is called as an upcasting, right? And yeah, you can see we are getting an error. So WebDriver change to Chrome driver. Okay, so this is not giving the suggestion, but what we can do is we can just copy it like this. So if ID is not giving you a suggestion, there is no other choice except like copying this complete package and importing it here like this, writing it as manual statement. Most of the time you'll get the suggestion, but sometimes if you don't get it, we need to add it manually like this. Okay. So this error has gone. Now if you observe new Chrome driver is implementing the WebDriver interface. So if you have, we learned this, right? So we can create an object for the Chrome driver. Chrome driver is a class. So we created an object for the Chrome driver and we can have it stored in the reference variable of the interface which Chrome driver is implementing, right? So the interface is WebDriver. So we can have the WebDriver reference variable and have it stored the object of Chrome driver class as Chrome driver is implementing the WebDriver interface. So this is possible, right? So this is valid. So why we need to do like this? So with this, what happens is tomorrow if I wanted to actually use this driver, right? This driver object to launch my any different browser. So I can do that, right? So we will see this first, right? So we can do this. This is valid, right? So this is a class. Chrome driver is a class, and we created an object for Chrome driver, and we have stored that in a reference variable of WebDriver. As WebDriver is an interface which Chrome driver has been implemented, right? So we have done this statement, and with even with this, we can browser will be launched. We have seen that with this statement, right? So now let's go to the second step. We wanted to navigate or open page. Once we open the browser, so what we wanted to do, we wanted to navigate to google.com. So how do we do that? We have an object, WebDriver object now, right? So we are gonna use that driver dot. So driver dot, all these are the different methods by WebDriver, right? So we are gonna use them. Driver dot get, and then the URL. Just pass this URL. Get is a method which accepts a string. So we have to provide a URL here so that WebDriver, after launching the browser, it actually navigates to the URL whichever we specify in the get method. So this will be the second step. So let me execute here. Run as. So we run the Selenium script also, same as like how we run it for any Java program, right? So you do run as Java application, right? So we do Java application. That's all. See, browser has been launched. Now it has to actually navigate to www.google.com. Yeah, it did, right? So it navigated to google.com. So we haven't wrote any other instruction, so it just stays like that. So I'm closing it manually for now. Now, so second step, we successfully automated the second step as well. Now we'll take the third step. What's the third step? We wanted to validate the page title, right? What's the page title? You can see here. Once we open any tab, right? So any URL, the tab will have its page title. So you can see it's Google, right? So this we wanted to look and validate, right? So how do we do that? First, we need to get this title, right? So once we open the browser, how do we read this? How do we read this page title? So we can easily see it, right? So we can view it to be Google, but we wanted WebDriver to know that to read this title. So how do we do that? Driver dot, there's a method for that. Get title. So get title gives you the web page title. You can see what get title returns. Get title is actually returning a string, right? So we'll have that stored in something called string. What's this? This is the actual title, which you get it. After we automate, so with this, we launched the browser, and with this, we navigated. Get method actually got us or navigated us to the particular URL, which we provided as a parameter to the get method. And then driver.getTitle actually fetches the title of the web page. And this we wanted to just store it in some string object or string literal actual title, right? And now we wanted to validate. So this is what we wanted to do, right? We wanted to validate page title to be Google. Is that is equal to Google or not, right? So we can use equals method. So when we wanted to compare two strings, we use the equals method, right? So equals, is that equals to Google is what we are verifying. If that is the case, then what we can say our test case has been passed is what we can say. Or else, if it is not the case, then what should we say? We should say test case is failed, right? So if the actual title, what is the actual title? Driver.get title. So driver.get title, WebDriver is gonna read the title of the web page. So that title, whatever it reads from the tab or the window, browser window, so that will be we are storing it in some string literal called actual title, and that we are comparing if it is equals to the expected value or not. If it is equals, we say test case pass, or else we'll say test case fail. right? So let's execute this. So it opens the browser. It has to navigate to google.com and then validate the page title. Yeah, it is done. So if you see test case passed because it verified the page title. It read the page title of the web page. It was Google. So it just verified it with this and it just says test case passed. That's all. It exits. Exits the program, right? Now, what we wanted to do? We wanted to close the browser. Once the test case is done, so we wanted to close the browser. How do we close the browser? Again, driver dot, there's a method for that. Driver dot close. So till now, what we are doing, once it launches, I'm actually closing it manually like this by clicking on this cross mark, right? So we don't need to do that. Even that can be automated with a method called close. So driver dot close. This method actually closes the browser. So run as Java application. See, the browser has been closed even, right? And we can see the output in the console, right? So we can even close the browser with other method. There is another method called quit, driver.quit. So we'll learn about this later in the coming sessions. So there are two methods, close and quit. And we'll also see what's the difference between close and quit method. Both actually closes the Chrome browser, browser window, not only Chrome, any browser window, right? So this is what we have did, right? So what did we do? We automated a small test case. Simple script, right? We have written a simple Selenium script, which actually launched the browser, right? We navigated to a particular URL and we just validated the title of that web page, right? And then we closed the browser window. Is it clear? Perfect. So this is all about it, right? Now, yeah, let's go back to the Selenium official documentation. So if you slowly scroll down, right, you will see browser supported by Selenium, right? So these are the different browsers supported by Selenium. So earlier in before Selenium 4 version, what we used to do was like we even used to download the browser specific drivers from here and we used to write a statement before this statement, right? Before even creating the instance of WebDriver, we used to set the path to the browser. So we download the browser driver and we set the path, right? So that's all, remote. Now that's all, it has been removed and the drivers are also included in the zip file now, Selenium jar files. Later in the latest version from Selenium 4, even that code has been removed. So you don't need to download the specific drivers. The compatible ones will already be downloaded when we download the Selenium jar files. That's already packed inside it. So we can we don't need to download the browser specific drivers and set the path and do that and all, right? So we can just launch by just creating the object of the specific browser class. And these are the browsers supported by Selenium. Firefox, Internet Explorer is not supported, so it is not supported anymore, right? So it is actually Edge. So the Microsoft has introduced a browser called Edge, and we can use Edge browser in place of Internet Explorer to automate, right? And Safari, Opera, Chrome, right? And I think Opera is also not supported from Selenium 4.1.0 version, right? So these are all the different browsers supported by Selenium. And what are the operating systems? Selenium supports Windows, Mac OS, and Linux operating systems. Now we will see like how to launch. See, now we have written this script, right? Now, if I wanted to actually run this script on other browser, say for example, I wanted to launch it on Edge. What all we need to do is Edge driver, import Edge driver class from the package org.openqa.selenium.edge. That's it. So you can just comment this out, run the test case, run as Java application. Now it is gonna run on the Edge browser. See, Edge browser window has been opened, right? Yeah, it closes. So there seems to be some issue with this close method for Edge. We can use quit method. But you can see the test case has been passed, right? So the same instructions which we give to automate the script for Google Chrome browser, that worked on Edge browser as well. Most of the cases it will work, but there will be some places where we, it will not work. So in that cases, we have to write the browser specific implementation or browser specific code for that to automate the scripts. So this time we didn't get the error. So we just use the quit method. We'll see what the difference between close and quit method in the coming sessions, right? So like this, we automated just google.com, right? So say for example, I wanted to enter something in this text box. So that will be one action, right? So how do we automate that? So for that, we need to we will have something called locators. So this is button. This is not same as the feed, right? So on this, I have to click. But on this text box, we need to provide some value. So there is some difference, right? And also there could be some checkbox. There could be radio buttons. Each element. So we call all these as the elements in Selenium, right? So even button is an element. This text field is an element. A checkbox will be an element. A radio button will be an element. Like that. All these are called as elements, right? So in the coming sessions, we'll learn locators. So how to locate this? So WebDriver has to locate this in order to provide the input, right? Or in order to perform some action, first the elements has to be located, right? So WebDriver has to need to know the elements. Only then it can interact with this element, right? So from the next session or rest of all the sessions, like the coming sessions, most of the coming sessions, like the next 4 to 5 sessions, we are going to learn about the locators. How do we locate these elements? So once we locate these elements, then WebDriver can interact with these elements. Interaction can be different for each element, right? So for text field element, what will be the interaction or what will be the action? We provide some text, right? For button, we do not provide any text. We just need to click. So the action will be different for this element called button. So on button, we can just click on it. And if it is a checkbox, we click it like that. On radio button, we click it like that. So particular element, so we have to locate it. Locating the element will be first step, and then performing the action on that element will be the second step. So only these two steps, using these two steps, we are gonna like the automation script, right? So not only Selenium, any automation script depends on only these two things, locating the element and then performing the action on the element. So these two steps are very important while writing the automation scripts. So in the coming sessions, we'll see different locators available in Selenium to locate the elements, to identify the elements, and then how do we perform the actions on those elements. So any questions in today's topic? So all this is like one-time setup. You don't need to worry. All this we'll do it one time, and from the next session, we'll just create the new Java classes and write the automation scripts, like how we did for the Java when we are learning Java project, right? When we are running Java, how did daily we create a package and we create the class name, right? Like that, we'll create the new packages, we'll create the new classes and learn new locators and how to automate those locators. That we'll learn in the coming session. All of this, whatever we learn today will be one-time setup. So just to recap, what did we do? So we'll see. So yeah, you can try it out. I'll share form.xml. So I'll share everything, whatever we discussed today. So I'm gonna share this classes, you know, the project, everything. Then what you can do is you can just try it out with the form.xml which I share. So you can just copy my form.xml to your project, Maven project, and see it, right? So it should work. So in this session, just to recap, we learned what Selenium WebDriver is and the hierarchy of WebDriver interface. Then we have seen the environment setup, like how to set up the environment. We have seen two approaches, a TDS approach and a latest approach with the Maven project, with a simple approach by creating a Maven project. And we have automated a simple test case, right, using the WebDriver. So if you have any questions, you can put it on the chat box. In the next session, we'll start learning the Selenium locators.